Hey everybody, Justin White here, and you're about to listen to episode 12 of Power Forward. Our guest is David Hall, President and CEO of Hall Financial Group. David's approach to business is fueled by a tireless work ethic and an abundance of positivity. We'll get into a variety of topics, including the one and only goal that David has for his business, how leaders should look at delegating, and why everyone should approach their job like they're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. An accomplished golfer, David also explains how golf equates to business and how to visualize success from the course to the conference room. That and more as we power forward with David Hall right now. The primary purpose of this podcast series is to inform, entertain, and educate. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast series do not constitute legal or other professional advice, opinions, or endorsements of any kind.
This is Power Forward.
All right, welcome back to Power Forward. Justin White alongside Mateen Cleaves. Mateen, how are you today, my friend?
Hey, living a dream, and please don't wake me up.
Well, I hope you brought your energy today, Mateen, because we have a special guest, and I'm told he is full of energy, full of optimism. And by the way, he's a special guest because he is one of our clients. David Hall, the president and CEO of Hall Financial, is with us. David, welcome to Power Forward.
It's great to be here and exciting, everything you guys are doing. I follow you guys, and you guys got some great stuff, both on video and podcast, and you guys are doing it right. So congratulations on all your success.
We appreciate that. We follow you as well. You're also doing your thing.
Thank you.
You have had your business now for just over 3 years, right? 2016. What has that experience been like for you, seeing it from the inception up until now?
You know, it's interesting because I have what I think a lot of people would consider to be a great pedigree in the mortgage business, having worked 13 years at Quicken Loans and 5 years here at United Shore before I got started. So thought I was really ready to open my own business, and the first 2 years was just all this trial and error and still things I didn't know. So now we feel like we have got a really good thing going, but it took a little while to get there. And I would tell you that, the first 24 months was filled with a lot of ups and downs, like probably a lot of small businesses. But it's exciting, and every day our people are pumped up about what we're doing. And, that passion is something that you can't replace, but the strategic stuff is the stuff that you can move around. And that's, I think what we found is that we were trying to figure out exactly who we wanted to be, and we've got that dialed in at this point. So it feels good, but we're still learning every day, just like everybody.
Yeah, and what advice would you have for someone that's trying to start their own business?
Well, I'll tell you, I think that, you got two different kinds of guys that I think try to start a business. The guy who probably over-prepares and he's never really going to feel like he's ready. And then you got the polar opposite with the guy who thinks he's ready and he's not, And so it kind of depends on who you are, because what I say to everybody is everything in life is relative. It's like your experiences sort of give you the ammunition to decide what are you going to do next based on where you've been. So I just think that for anybody who's starting a business, I mean, it's a lot of fun, but you just got to know it's tough. It's tough, but it's so worth it. And, I have such a respect for, working with Matt here like I did for 5 years. And, people ask me a lot about Matt, and, we're good friends. But he has this very unique combination of this unbelievable, unbridled passion about what he's doing.
Yes.
And he's really smart. And when you put those two things together, he creates an environment where he's just a winner, And so working around him and some of the other people I've worked around with, but he would be at the forefront of, I'm a very competitive guy, but when I worked with Matt, it was one of the first guys I ever worked with where it was without question, he's more competitive than I am. And I can't say that about a lot of people I've encountered in my life, but and so you just look at a guy like him and then you realize that, it can be done through the energy and the passion, the commitment and everything that he has. So it's a great environment you guys have here. I
want to go back to a point that you made earlier when you were starting the business. You said you got to decide who you want to be. When you were thinking that through, what were the things that were most important to you with your business?
Well, I think for me, because of the way that I grew up and my experiences, everything always falls back to hard work. I think I grew up in an environment where, for whatever reason, my answer to everything was to try to outwork everybody. You know, I was never the most talented guy, and I had some good experiences. You know, I played on the golf team at University of Michigan, and so I was like, but I kind of barely made the team, and then I didn't really play that much till my senior year, and in school, I always had to kind of study harder than the other guys because I wasn't necessarily the smartest kid in the class. And so everything to me goes back to hard work, and that's what we preach and we talk about. And it's probably why Matt and I get along really well, because we think similarly in that way. So I think just falling back on doing the work and outworking everybody, that I think when you don't have answers in the talent department sometimes, and you're playing guys that are more talented than you got to say, well, I got to go put in 5 hours of practice because the other guy's only going to practice 2. And as a kid, that was just my answer to everything, because I didn't really know what else to do other than to work hard. And so I think that translates over into our business today.
Yeah, it's funny because I always tell a story about Matt. Matt was on our team, and Matt had to work 10 times harder than everybody else to be the 14th best player.
Yeah.
And to have that energy and passion every day, it no surprise that he's having success in what he's doing right now. And guys like Matt, and listening to you talk, David, it seemed like you guys had like a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, that's probably a little true. You know, Matt, I remember for the early days of meeting with Matt and talking to him, and he took tremendous pride, and I could tell right away, in getting you ready for whatever the next game was.
Yep.
You know what I mean? When you got a guy like that on the team, and of course, I know he loved being on the team, and he's a scrappy player, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't the superstar,
right?
But he wanted to be on that team, and he wanted to contribute.
He did.
And it was pretty inspiring, when he would tell me that he would kind of study whatever the guy was you were going to play next, and their tendencies, so that he could work you that way in practice. And he took a lot of pride in that, and I think that just translates over into everything that you do. I mean, if I'm going to do something today that doesn't seem like it's that big a deal, I still want to do it my best. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of carries with you if you have that kind of an attitude about things.
So you had that mindset and have that mindset to outwork everybody. When it comes to the people around you, the people that work in your business, if they don't have that same mindset, what's your approach? Well,
I think a couple things. I mean, everybody's got different skills. As a younger guy, I was probably more opinionated than I am as an older guy, because what I try to do is I look for the strengths in everybody. When you find people's strengths and then you play to those strengths, I think you have a better chance to be successful. I was fortunate. I had a mentor in my life when I was in my 30s that I worked with. His name was Stephen Luigi Piazza, and a lot of people in the community know him. And Piazza was on me all the time, and he filled me with confidence, but he also gave me a lot of wisdom. And so, because I was one of the better guys at the company, he would be real hard on me. And one of the things that he always told me is, stop looking for people's weaknesses, because anybody can find that. You got to find their strengths. And that was so polar opposite of anything that I had ever done, because I was the kind of guy who's like, if my backhand's not good, I got to work on my backhand for 20 hours. And he would tell me, stop focusing on that. If this guy's not good at a certain thing, but he's good at another thing, you got to help him or her with that and make it even better so that you're playing to their strengths. And that was just a cosmic mind shift for me in terms of how I then related to other people. So to your point, I think everybody in our business is hardworking because we share that quality. But at the same time, I try to focus on what are people's strengths and then enhance those strengths.
That's good stuff. And I look at, you have some leaders, okay, you have people that's opposite of you. Yourself, you might see things in people that you saw in yourself. How do you motivate, and kind of the same question, how do you motivate some of the people that, you see so much in them, and as leaders, sometimes we see things in people that they don't see in themselves.
Yeah.
So how do you motivate that person?
Well, this is an interesting question, because I've had a lot of conversations with people over the years about that very thing. Like, I see that you could be great, and they don't see that. Mm-hmm. And I think working on them every day in terms of getting them to see what they can become, a lot of people, for whatever reason, I was real fortunate. My dad was just a very positive influence on everything. He probably made me believe I was better than I was, which was helpful. You know what I mean? So he gave me some false confidence, but it turned out to be okay. And so I just try to make an impact on people in any way you can, and every day it's just a little dent. You know what I mean? You never make like this big cosmic shift in one day. It takes a lot of time. But to your point, convincing other people that they can do big things is sometimes an incredible task. And I'll tell you that some of my happiest moments in just leadership and having impact on people are the calls that I get. And it's going to sound like I make this up, but I promise you this is true. I've probably gotten, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 phone calls over the years from somebody who says to me, hey, Hall, I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm like, hey, Bobby, how you doing? Whoever it is. And he says, I just wanted you to know that at the time that I worked with you, I really didn't like you, but now I get it. And that is like the most impactful conversations that I have, because as a young guy, I was tough on guys. I was real tough on people. And it was just my way, and I'm probably easier now as I get a little older. The guys in my business would not tell you I'm easy on them, so they're laughing at this right now. But I'm tough on people, but I try to be a little more realistic and a little, with my approach, I want to be a little more strategic and have it be more positive. I could, when I was in my 20s and 30s, just think you know everything, and I was maybe a little negative with people because I wanted them to be good, and I didn't really know how to make them be good. You know what I mean? And so it's just a whole different environment for me now, and when we grow up, I think we learn things and hopefully get better.
You talked about your dad kind of instilling that positivity in you, and having a positive attitude is something we hear a lot around here, because Matt Ishbia, our CEO, constantly preaches the importance of having a smile on your face, having a positive attitude. In business especially, David, when there are going to be highs, there are going to be lows, how important is it to always try and look on the positive side of things?
I think it's the most important thing. I don't think there's anything that's more important. And in fact, I think that, growing up, and I think people would always have said that, David's an optimistic guy and he's got a positive attitude and that kind of thing. But when I got here and I started working with Matt, it kind of rejuvenated the whole thing, because he really takes it to another level. And it's always good to hear the perspective of somebody else. And, Matt's big things always were positive attitude and hard work. Those are the two biggies. And the way that he kind of framed it and talked about it a lot and kept at it and kept at it and kept at it. And the message, it kind of rejuvenated me, because here's another smart guy who's telling me the same thing that I've known for a long time, and it keeps you on point. So I think if somebody were to say to me, if they were like 19 years old and they were thinking, hey, I want to do big things with my life, whatever it is, athletics, academics, business world, I'd say the number one thing is having an unbelievable positive attitude, because it's free and you can do it if you want to do it. If I said to you guys, hey, you got to pay a little extra to have a positive attitude and negative attitude, you'd pay for it. So why wouldn't you do it if it's free? You know what I mean? It carries you through so many situations. And I think it's easy to kind of look at things little negatively at times. We all do it. It's human nature. But it's almost going against the grain to be positive when everybody else is sort of saying things aren't looking that rosy. You know what I mean?
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm big on positivity. I talk to people all the time, and it's like, well, it's kind of dim outside. Well, it's not raining. If it's raining, well, it's not snowing. Find the positive in that. And I think that gets me going. That gets me through my days, just staying positive. People say, how do you do it? Right. And it's all a mindset. Right. I'm going to have a good day no matter what you do, because I want to have a good day. And that's kind of how I go about it. It seems like that's how you go about it.
I think the key to that, too, is when you take a step back and you realize that in your work life or in your sports life or in even your relationships or whatever, there's going to be ups and downs. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean you have to get negative. Just because there's ups and downs doesn't, so you're not at effect of what's happening. You're in control of deciding how you're going to approach every situation. And that's just, I think, a real sort of a mature mindset that no matter what happens, I'm staying positive, because just like the stock market's up and down, people's emotions are up and down, your business career's up and down, your athletic career can be up and down. Staying positive is a choice.
Yep.
And it's perspective too, right? Things are going to come up, things are going to happen, but if you take a step back and kind of gather yourself and look at the big picture, that's what I try to do. I always say, things could always be worse, or there's somebody else out there who's dealing with this. Those are the things that kind of help me in those moments.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is sort of thinking about, this is something I use with our guys a lot, is, if somebody says, hey, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I can't make it to this thing that I should probably go to, or whatever, I always remind them, if you were the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, how would you behave? And why would you behave differently? Because you're not. So whatever your goals are, if your goal is to be a Matt Ishbia, you got to behave like he behaves today. But everybody says, oh, I'll wait till I get the job, then I'll behave that way. That's not how it works, and you're never going to get the job if you do that. You got to behave in that way to get the job. So if you want to like play basketball at Michigan State, you better be practicing your behind off when you're 10 years old, because that's what the other guys are doing. And so often we get locked in, into our small communities about, even I'm the best guy in my city. Well, it's a big world. And so if you want to compete on a big stage, you've got to really make sure you bring it every day. And I just always remind our guys that no matter what your goal is, if you want to be the CEO of Apple, I want you to think about what he's doing today and how he's behaving. And like, if he's not feeling well, is he still working through it or is he heading home? You know what I mean? And that's a big difference in how people behave and how maybe they should if they really want to accomplish things. And then you start to find out how serious people are about achieving the things that they say they want to achieve, because a lot of people, maybe they don't want to do that and they're happy to be a role player, which is a little different situation. So you got to size up people. What are you willing to do to get to where you want to go? And I think that a big piece of it is, are you behaving in a manner that where you can get there? Because if you're not, you're just not going to get there, and we should talk about that because that's just the facts.
Well, I'm telling you, Justin, you strap me down in my chair because he has me fired up.
I told you he was optimistic, man.
And I had a question I was going to ask you towards the end of the interview, but I got to ask you now. Listening to you, and what drives you, man? It's like you're wired a little different than a lot of people. So, what drives you?
Yeah, it's funny. I just think I tell this to my wife all the time, is I wake up every day for whatever reason, like pumped up. When I wake up, I'm optimistic. And a lot of nights I go to bed and I can be a little down. Like something could have happened during the day where I'm either bummed out or didn't go the way I wanted or whatever. But when I wake up in the morning, I'm just excited about life. And I think that, having a perspective, at least for me, that we're here for a short period of time. This doesn't last forever. And if you want to accomplish things, you can't be thinking you can take shortcuts or taking days off or, hey, this isn't important. I mean, everything's important. So I don't know. I think a lot of that comes from my parents, and but I can't. People ask me that sometimes, is like, what gets into you? And I don't really know how to answer that, but I do try to surround myself with other positive people. Mm-hmm. And I'm just excited about life. I think I just realize how sort of short it can be, and that we got to take advantage of it while we're here.
What about work habits, David, specifically? Because successful people want to gravitate to other successful people. When you think about the way you structure your life, your days, what are the things that go into that help make you successful?
Well, I'll tell you, when I started in the business world, I just tried to, this is going to sound like really basic, but I just looked at all the guys that were the best at what I was trying to do, and I just did what they did. I mean, I really did. I just took all the best practices, and that's why when I started working with Matt, I started doing a bunch of things that he did because I could see that it was working for him. So I'll just give you one example. I was 24 years old or something, and the top sales guy that came to the office every day, he was there every day at 7 o'clock. Like clockwork. I'd come in at 8, or whatever I came in, and I'd talk to him and say, hey, what's going on? Yeah, and I figured out. So I started coming in every day at 6:45, and I was waiting for him. And he'd get there, and that was a great time for us to spend some time together because it was sort of a quiet time. And I quickly realized that successful people are morning people. As a young kid, I wasn't a morning person. I slept in all morning. And, you stay up half the night, when you're younger, but you can't do that when you want to get into business. So just like these little things that I picked up along the way just from watching what other people did and how they were successful. One of my biggest mentors, he was big on communication via email, answering every single email, not going to bed at night until your inbox is all cleaned out and you've responded to every one of them when I was a young guy. And that just, to me, seemed like the overachiever thing to do. So that's what I gravitated towards. So I just tried to look around at what are the best people doing, and especially like what are the hard things that they're doing. Like for me, getting up at 5:30 in the morning when I was in my 20s wasn't that much fun, but I thought that's what I needed to do if I really wanted to become successful. And that was my goal, was in whatever it is I did, was to be quote unquote successful.
And it's funny you say that. I remember being at Michigan State, and Jason Richardson, we had a freshman coming in, super talented. But if I went to the gym early, he went to the gym early. If I came late, he came late. And he just was so locked in. He would never leave my side. He stayed right underneath my wing. And, we won a national championship. I went on to be the 14th pick next year. I mean, that same year. And the following year, he went on to be the 5th pick of the NBA
remember
draft.
that from Golden State.
Yes,
yeah.
and had a great career, but it was that mindset. He locked in. I was probably the best player on the team at the time. And as soon as he came through the door, he just followed me around. Now, let me ask you this. Because
so did you put any parameters on him, by the way? Because I had one of the guys that I looked up to. He put some parameters on me because I would get a little too close to him. He said, you got to stay arm's length away from me. So did Richardson get up close?
He was up close.
He wanted to know what's going on?
He wanted to know everything.
Yeah.
I let him in.
Okay, good.
I let him right on.
That's what a good mentor does.
Exactly. Yeah. But let me ask you this, because someone of your magnitude, and that's having success in business, I've been around CEOs and other successful businessmen that they try to do it all themselves, and they don't want to let anybody else do anything. They got the hand on everything. Now, I like to ask people about delegating, because it trusts. And I look at delegating as it's a win-win. It takes a little off your plate, but yet it empowers whoever you delegate to. What do you feel about delegating?
So somebody must have tipped you off about this. Did somebody
No,
tip you
they
off?
didn't.
Okay.
Sources.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I'll try to be brief, although it's kind of a long story. But
take your time.
First of all, I'm a high delegator. And a lot of guys that I see that are successful, they don't want to delegate. They want to do everything themselves because they want to do it right. At a young age, one of my mentors told me, Hall, if somebody else can do the job 80% of what you would do it, he said, you'll always think you can do it better than anybody else. But if somebody else can do it 80% or better than you can do it, then delegate it and move on and do something else, because there's only so much you can do in a day. And I thought that was great advice. Piazza, my mentor, one of my mentors, he used to say, nobody goes from zero to delegate quicker than you. So in other words, a new person would show up on the job, and there'd be somebody new, and I'd delegate a bunch of stuff for them to do. And I'd say, how else are we going to find out if they're good? You know what I mean? Like, to me, I'm not just going to have them sit around here for a couple months and wonder if they're good. I'm going to give them a bunch of stuff and see if they can do it, and I'll follow up with them. Some people think that I'm a high delegator. Other people think that I'm a micromanager. I can be both, but I never get in anybody's business unless I feel like something's not going well. If something's not going well, I'm going to get into your business, and I'm going to find out what's going on. But if everything looks smooth sailing, people have no problem with me. So you'll find a little bit of a dichotomy if you talk to people about what it's like working with me, because some people feel like I was always in their business. Well, that's probably because they weren't very good. And other people who said, yeah, Hall was great to work with. He was easy, just gave him a bunch of stuff, and away I went. It's because they got the job done. So I think you got to be smart about how you do it. But once I get people around me, I like to delegate, and I think it's good for the organization. I think it shows trust to other people that they know what they're doing. And then I think you can build confidence with other people in that way. And I'd rather be working on high-level strategy stuff for the business and not always in the minutia. I'm not a big detail guy. I can do it if I need to, but I'd prefer to work on stuff that I feel like that I would normally shortchange myself on because I'm too busy working in the business, and I like working on the business. So it's a tough thing, but the delegation thing is funny because I've been accused of delegating too fast before, and that's just what I do.
Well, in your business, David, you are helping people achieve the dream of home ownership. You're helping them navigate the biggest financial transaction of their entire lives. When you think about that, in a customer service role, how do you build trust? How do you build a company and a brand that people look at and say, that's a company I want to go work with?
Well, I think that's why we decided that our only goal really at our company is to get a 5-star review from every client. We don't have any other goals. Our only goal is to get a 5-star review. We're not trying to do X amount of loans a month. We're not trying to set any records of being the biggest. We want to get a 5-star review from every client because I know intrinsically that what will happen is they'll refer other people, the good word will go, and that if we're focused on that, our loan officers, our marketing people, our processors, all the people internally are focused on a 5-star review, that we're going to deliver service. And in our business, so many people are focused on the transaction and not necessarily focused on the service of the consumer, because how the consumer feels is the most important thing. And what I found as a loan officer growing up in this business is when you make other people feel good, meaning like, hey, you're delivering the numbers you told them you were going to deliver to them. The interest rate you're locking them in is the rate that they thought. You're closing on time. That makes people, then they have trust in you. They want to refer you other business. They want to come back to you and do it more in the future. I tell people all the time, and I'm not trying to say anything negative about the banks necessarily or any of the big lenders, but because of their lack of a focus on service is why I've been able to be very successful in this business. If they were focused on the consumer the way that I'm focused on the consumer, I'd be out of business. So it's just been a real interesting thing that, because it's a mortgage and it's complicated and there's a lot going on, sometimes we lose sight of the consumer and how they feel. So that's our focus.
Wait. You mean to tell me, hold on, all the success you're having in business, your focus, it's not about the money, it's all about the people.
No, because that's coming. That's going to come. Yeah, you gotta focus on the consumer because the money will follow. The whole thing that people get tricked up in is trying to make each dollar. You know what I mean? If you're building something successful for a long time, that's not what you really focus on. You focus on the path to get there. So I sort of like the standpoint of looking at things as to like how did the client feel when the loan was closed? What else matters, really? There's nothing else that matters. You can talk about a lot of things. I gave them the numbers. The numbers are so secondary compared to making sure that your clients have a great experience.
You mentioned that you're a competitive guy, and that also translates to the golf course. You're a very competitive golfer. What's your handicap?
Well, I'm a scratch.
Okay, well, that means he's really good. What is it about golf for you that drew you to the game that you really enjoy about being out there on the course?
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing. Growing up, I played sports, a lot of sports, like a lot of kids, and I was just I was pretty good at golf. And then, so when I was in high school, I was a pretty good baseball player, hockey player, golfer, and I don't know. It's kind of an odd thing because it wasn't necessarily my favorite sport, but I thought that I could play it in college and the other sports were going to be tougher. And it turned out to be just the best decision I ever made because it's a sport you can play for a lifetime, And so a lot of people will play, whether it's basketball or baseball or hockey or whatever, you kind of come to the end of the road at some point. Well, I'm going to be golfing when I'm 80 years old, So it was really fortunate, and just golf probably just kept me out of a lot of trouble, because the time commitment game, and you're always practicing. It becomes a little bit of an obsession to get it right, and ball's not fading quite enough. I got to get fading a little more. I got to work on my draw and all these things. And as a kid, my other options probably were, getting in trouble or something like that. So, just like anybody who's passionate about what they're doing, it's just all about getting better. I've fallen more in love with golf as time has gone on. As a kid, I was just in love with the competitiveness. Now I kind of appreciate the game even more and just the camaraderie and the social aspect of it, which, as a kid, you just want to win all the time. And I still want to win, but it's fun to go out there and, play with some friends, and people can be of different skill levels and you can have a lot of fun with it. And I still get to play in some tournaments here and there. I've had some highlights. I told my wife the other day, I'm not playing for status anymore. I'm playing for moments. I used to play for status, meaning like I wanted to be top 10 in the state. I wanted to be number one at this, and as a young guy, I was ranked the top amateur golfer in Michigan when I was younger and that kind of thing. But now your focus kind of shifts, and it's like, you just want to be on the 18th hole with a chance to win because that's fun, and you're getting older, but the juice is still flowing. So those moments are really what I play for now, and that's why I go practice.
And you talked about being on the 18th hole with a chance to win. I come from a basketball background. End of the game, being at the free throw line. Yeah. So can you talk about the mental part of it? Because, it could be a guy that can make 100 free throws in a row, but when the game is on the line, it's a little different. So can you go into the mental part of it?
Yeah, I've been fortunate that one of the things I studied a lot over the years is sports psychology. And so the psychology of performance, which is interesting to me because it translates over into business quite a bit. I always use basketball as an example because basketball, for the most part, is a reaction sport, right? You come off the pick, you catch the ball, you're going up, a guy's got his hand in your face, you're shooting. It's all happening in a split second. Yeah. But a 3-foot putt or a free throw to win are very similar because you got a lot of time to think about it.
Yes.
And you've practiced it and practiced it and practiced it. And there, maybe you're thinking about your stroke a little bit more. Whereas if you're coming off the pick, grabbing the ball, just shooting it up, you're not thinking about where your elbow is or where your wrist is or any of this other stuff. So as golfers, it's like we practice all this stuff and we want to get it all dialed in, but then when it comes the moment to do it, you kind of want to forget about it because all you want to think about is target, So just the whole psychology of all that is fascinating to me. And I think it makes golf a really hard sport because you have so much time to think about it.
Every shot, right?
Every shot, yep. Whereas, like, basketball being, like I said, a reaction sport, you're playing defense, you're playing offense, you're going from, side to side. And you can just really get exposed in golf if you're thinking the wrong way. We've seen it a million times. How many guys have gone into the final round of a tournament and they shoot 80 because they haven't been there before, and it becomes a very mental challenge. Dustin Johnson famously at it was the U.S. Open many years ago.
Yeah, Whistling Straits.
Yeah, well, that was the last
that was
hole.
The other one, yeah.
But he shot 82 at Pebble Beach one year when it was there. Anyway, just, every golfer's done that and gone through that, and it's just a mental battle. It's just a lot like business, it's a mental battle.
So what about you? When you're standing over a 3-foot putt, a knee knocker that means a lot, where are you mentally? What are you thinking about?
Okay, well, I'll give you a little something on that. So, it's all about visualization, visualing it go in over and over and over. And then I forget about the cup and I pick a spot in between the ball and the cup. And that way I just try and roll it over the spot. And I just learned that a long time ago. Instead of trying to make it, you're so focused on making it, I'll find a little spot between the ball and the hole. And my whole thing is just to do my normal stroke and just stroke it right over that spot. And most times it goes in once in a while.
I'm going to do that. Yeah.
I listen, I hope my son is tuning in to this because I talked to him about when he's shooting jump shots. Just shoot it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about making or miss it. Shoot it the right way and let your confidence take it in.
Well, and it's a percentage game, right? I mean, like, if you look at, it's funny, you look at PGA Tour stats and you just take like a 7-footer. So the average PGA Tour guy on a 7-footer, they make 50% of them. Well, when you're standing over a 7-footer when you're playing golf, you think you should make it. But when you know in the back of your head that the guys that are the best in the world make 50% of these, it kind of, I think that's where the analytics of the game, all games, have kind of come into play to be helpful. Because to me now, like, I'd always get upset if I missed a 7-footer, but now I'm going to make 50% of these if I'm the very best. And so I think the percentages, same with shooting, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if a guy's shooting 40% from 3, he's lights out. It means he's missing 6 out of 10, right? So it's the same kind of thing. Is you got to understand what are the percentages for me to be successful instead of getting down on myself. Because I think every guy who's good at something, they can get down on themselves if they're not performing great, and that's kind of how I think.
It's like in baseball. If you go 1 for 3. You're a Hall of Famer. You make 2 outs out of every 3.
2 out of 3 out.
You're in Cooperstown.
Yeah, and I teach that to my sales guys too, because you don't get every deal, and that's part of the mentality of being good in sales. Most guys aren't not good in sales because they don't know how to sell. It's because they don't have enough activity. So in other words, if you know that you're only going to get 1 out of 3 in sales, and I'm just making that number up because some guys are really good and they'll get 3 out of 4. Some guys aren't that good and they'll get 1 out of 4. It's all about creating enough activity so that whatever your percentage is, you can still be successful. But most guys don't have enough activity, and as soon as they get 2 clients that are very interested, they think they're busy. That's not how it works. You got to have a lot of people that are interested. That's busy, and then let your percentages take over from there. So when you lose a deal, it's not that big of a deal. People don't understand that.
Well, this has been really fun. We've really enjoyed getting to hear some of your stories and your perspective on business and sports. And I know Mateen's got something else he wants to throw
I want to
your way.
ask you one more question because I was messing around on YouTube today, right?
Oh boy!
And I saw this video. This is how we do it video that UW made, and I looked up and I saw David Hall, aka Chief Rapper Officer.
What?
So
Chief Rap Officer.
Yeah, Chief Rap Officer. So how fun was it to make that?
That was great. We had a lot of fun when I was here, and I remember doing that. And I think they put a big clock. No, I had the sunglasses and the hat on.
Yeah.
So we had some fun with some different videos and doing some things. That's funny. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, now everyone's going to go look that up.
What's funny is at the time it always seems like it's a good idea, and then 8 years later it's like, why'd I do that? But
once it's on the internet, it's there forever.
I'm surprised. Matt, he's not. He's all about fun, but he even got into it. He was in the video.
Big time.
You got to check it out.
Yeah.
It was a great video.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
All right, now everybody
we created
else
our
knows.
own lyrics about United Shore and the whole thing. Yeah, it's fun.
Great stuff. David, we appreciate the time. Continued success to you, and thanks for sharing your story
and
with us.
And you guys keep it up because you guys are spreading the word, honestly. And we watch your Market Watch all the time, and then the podcasts are great. So you guys got to keep doing this because I think that the whole industry needs it and likes it.
We appreciate
it.
David, thanks so much.
You got it.
And thank you for listening. To make sure you never miss an episode of Power Forward, Subscribe wherever you find your podcasts and leave us a review. And look for another new episode coming your way 2 weeks from now, featuring more inspirational stories of success. I'm Justin White. We'll see you next time on Power Forward.